Thanks so much for joining us. My name's Connor, and this is the Rustic Pathways Get Ready to Go webinar. So all throughout the webinar tonight, we're going to be answering just a lot of the general questions about getting prepared for your trips. We are super excited to have you all join us for the summer. So I'll be answering some questions. We'll have students and parents sort of all mixed and coming from all of our different countries that are leaving in the next month. So we're going to go over sort of all of our general questions tonight. And then if you have any specific questions, I've got my colleagues, Casey and Colleen in the background, who will be answering questions during the webinar. But if you have any questions during it, just use that Q&A section sort of at the bottom of your screen, type in your question, and they'll either answer it during the webinar if it's specific to your trip, or if it's a good general question, we'll take that at the very end of the webinar. A little bit about myself. My name is Connor. I'm a global program advisor at Rustic Pathways. So I just had my 10-year anniversary with Rustic last week. I've run about 60 different programs, just got back from Morocco myself yesterday. So I am very well versed in getting prepared for trips, what to expect on travel days once you get on the ground. Super excited to sort of answer all your questions as we get prepped for your programs. Get excited for your trip. It's either a couple days away, a week away, a couple weeks away. Really just get prepped for a really great adventure. The first thing they always want people to know is this is the time where people start to get really excited, but also a little bit nervous. This might be your first time traveling overseas. It might be your first time sending your student on a program like this where you're not attending it with them. People tend to have lots and lots of questions. They tend to be at least a little bit nervous. You know, am I the only one traveling? Am I the only parent who's had this question before? You are not alone. We've been doing this for well over 30 years. I guarantee you any questions that you have, we've heard it before. We always want to make people feel really comfortable and really prepped for their program and their experience. So anytime throughout this webinar, but also as you're preparing for the trip, always feel free, give us a call, use our website. Our website is a great resource. There probably is the question on our website somewhere. Like I said, a lot of times parents and students have the same questions, even if they don't think that anyone else is asking it, but we are always happy to sort of answer those for you. Throughout the webinar, we're going to go over sort of what to expect. So what to expect on travel days, what to expect sort of once you get on the ground, how to prepare for the program itself. I'm going to be sort of going in and out of the webinar a little bit, going onto our website just to show you how to navigate it a little bit to find some of the answers on the website as well. If you are on the website at the same time while you're on this webinar, I think a really great site just to sort of like bookmark is rusticpathways.com/get-ready. That just gives you sort of like a laundry list of things to sort of go through and check through in terms of visas, vaccinations, packing, how to prep for the program, how to talk to your student about what to expect once they get on the ground, sort of just a really great laundry list of things as you get prepped for the program. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll take your questions, like I said. First and foremost, packing. That's usually the biggest question that we see at this time of year. Probably a little bit earlier in the year is when you decided, Morocco is your program or Thailand is your place to go. And now is your 1 week, 2 weeks out. This is really when the questions come up of, oh shoot, I don't know what shoes to wear, or should I be bringing my own towel, or what kind of bag should I be using? So these are first and foremost the questions that we get the most at this time of year. I'm going to back out of the webinar for a quick minute just to take you to the Rustic Pathways website. So right here is the Rustic Pathways website. I have us just right now on the Intro to Community Service page in Costa Rica, but in general, the way to find your program again is if you just click this menu tab and you click on the country of the program where you're attending, that'll give you the big list of programs to select, and then you'll click into the individual program that you're doing. So right here, like I said, this is the Intro to Community Service page for Costa Rica specifically. And as you scroll down right below the departure dates, you'll see a couple of these different tabs. One of the tabs on every program page is always going to be packing information. And that will give you a packing list for this specific trip. A lot of times if people are like comparing trips, or if you have two students going on programs, they'll start to look the same. So they're like, well, is this specific to my trip? Absolutely. Most of these programs we've been running for, 5, 10 years, 15, 20 years sometimes. So the packing lists are defined and sort of boil down to that program specifically, a lot of the stuff will start to look the same. So for every program, you're gonna need your passport, you're gonna need wallet, money, maybe a book, water bottle. But really, as you get into like what you're putting in your checked luggage, that is very specific to the program. So some of the countries where we travel, like Peru, it's going to be a little bit chillier. So you're going to see things like a fleece or sort of a down jacket, which you're not going to see on the Costa Rica packing list. You'll also see some like very specific things for programs like rubber boots. So our Intro to Community Service team for Costa Rica suggests you either bring rubber boots or 15 to 20 bucks so you can buy the rubber boots in country. I guarantee you, if you follow this packing list to a T, you are going to be on the right path. I think a lot of times where people sort of veer a little bit is when they go, I don't really think I'm going to need like a long sleeve shirt, or I don't really think I'm going to need a water bottle or a hat. Guaranteed, these are super, super refined packing lists over the years. So if you follow this, you're going to just be in a good spot. It'll go through sort of like the required things in terms of clothing, in terms of toiletries, optional things that you can bring. Biggest thing that I always tell people as well, people have a tendency to overpack. So when you start to see, you know, like t-shirts 6 to 8, oh, well, I'm gone for 2 weeks, I'm probably going to need at least 15 t-shirts. Certainly, you know yourself a little bit better than just like a general packing list. If you are someone who changes shirts 3 times a day, you might be doing that. Usually what we see on programs, though, is people tend to wear the same shirt for service day, or we inherently know that you're going to be able to do laundry halfway through the program. So you're not going to need, you know, a shirt every single day for 2 weeks of the program, but you may be able to rewear some of those shirts. So best thing you can do is sort of follow this packing list in the forefront, just in terms of like what to pack, what to bring. These are sort of like the key items that I always want to encourage people. You know, if you sort of veer a little bit from how many shirts or how many pairs of shorts or shoes that you want to bring, these are the kind of things that you absolutely need. So water bottle, you're always going to be provided with potable or drinking water in country. We do like to have like those bigger, you know, 15 sort of gallon, 20 gallon jugs that we can refill water bottles. We're just trying to reduce the amount of like plastic impact we have around the world. So we want everyone to have a refillable water bottle, just so we can keep providing you sort of water in country. Passport and appropriate visas. Not every country is going to need a visa. It's certainly something that you can log into your Rustic portal to see if you need a visa for the country where you are traveling. But you're going to want to make sure that you have the valid passport and visa, if applicable, for the country that you are traveling to. I always encourage people to just take another copy of your passport as well. So it doesn't hurt just to have a picture of that front information page just on your phone, because most students these days will be traveling with a phone. So it's nice to have it there. But then also just get a paper copy and sort of tuck it into your checked luggage, just in case something happens while you're on your domestic flight. You forgot it in your seat back pocket before you met up with the group or something like that. Just always helps to have a copy of that passport just in case. Spending money, our general rule of thumb for programs is you want between $100 and $150 of money per week of program that you're on. So if you are traveling for 2 weeks, assume between $200 and $300. If you're connecting programs together and you're traveling for 3-4 weeks, again, just sort of multiply the number of weeks times $100 to $150. Technically, you could travel with $0 in your pocket and be totally fine. You know, all of our programs is going to include like the activities on the itinerary, transportation, food, accommodation, all that kind of stuff. It really is for personal expenses. That would be things like snacks or souvenirs, or if you're participating in a program that has sort of optional activities. Again, sort of backing that just for a second, you can also sort of find that on that sort of program information section. So right here, where we sort of see the information about packing information, you'll also see a tab that says FAQ, and you'll see sort of a whole thing about spending money and add-on activities. So you'll see Intro to Community Service, which is just the page that I'm on, has no additional add-on activities. It's just all included with what's listed on the program. But depending on your program, like if you're going to Fiji or Australia, there might be options to like skydive or bungee jump. If you're in Thailand, there might be an option for like a an hour Thai massage, cool stuff like that. It'll be listed in there if it's an add-on activity. And so that might edit beyond just that $100 to $150 recommendation if you have some of those add-on activities as well. Don't worry about converting that money before you're on program. We will help students convert from US dollars into local currency when they're there. And often that's just the easiest way to do it. You can also bring if they have like an ATM card to pull out money from some countries. But that's a really good question for your personal travel advisor as well. If you're just curious if you should be bringing cash or an ATM card. In general, I don't recommend people to rely on credit cards. Most places where we're traveling just will not take credit cards, like in the local market, or if you're trying to get a soda. The systems are just not set up for that. You might be able to use a credit card for something like if you are skydiving in Australia for some of the optional add-on activities, but for the most part, don't rely on credit cards as your main form of money on the ground. Also bring a camera. A lot of times people ask, should I bring my DSLR camera? It's a little bit nicer. I love photography. My big thing is if you like photography, these are the types of experiences that are really beautiful and you'll want to capture. Just keep in mind that you are responsible for sort of keeping your camera safe. I definitely think, as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, this is the great opportunity to sort of be aware of your property and make sure that you're keeping it safe and not just straying it about, when you're at the waterfall or, just like leaving it on a rock and forgetting about it. Definitely you'll want to be mindful of it, but I also think this is just the greatest opportunity to sort of take some beautiful pictures while you're traveling. That being said, most students these days also just use their phones as a camera. Totally fine as well. We'll go over sort of cell phone policies in a slide or two, but that's also fine if you're just bringing your phone as your camera on the program itself. And also the next thing that we're going to go into is just appropriate clothing. So sort of packing appropriately for the country that you're traveling, keeping in mind that sometimes the common clothes that we wear in the States, it might be fine to go to school or for sports practice or things like that, may not be appropriate for travel in Thailand or Morocco or Peru or the various countries that we travel. And then the first point here, again, still pack light. So always, sort of like look at what you're packing. What I always tell people is if you've got a 50 or 70 liter duffel bag, doesn't mean cram everything in to fit exactly the 50 or 70 liters. Just because you have some extra space in your bag doesn't mean to fill every nook and cranny. Also keep in mind, you may be buying souvenirs that you'll want to be packing in that bag on the way back. So certainly we'll have students that bring, a pair of shorts or a pair of sneakers that they are sort of planning on leaving behind, and that's what makes the extra room. But it also doesn't hurt if you just have like a little bit extra space in that bag on your way out to the country as well. Now onto appropriate clothing. This, for by and large, is the question that we get the most often. Shorts. What shorts should I be packing for my program? In general, here are just some examples and some ways, some pictures that we have of some appropriate shorts or bottoms to wear and some not appropriate bottoms or shorts to wear. In general, when you're wearing shorts, you want something that comes at least to your knee, probably maybe dips right below. So right there on sort of the left of the screen, you sort of see that gentleman in that top picture with shorts that hit sort of just the top of his knee, and then someone in capris that go right below it. Those are totally fine. So a traditional basketball short, like a capri pant, awesome. That's definitely what you want to be wearing. The common thing that we see most people ask about or concerned about is a lot of girls especially will be wearing sort of those Nike running shorts or so those sort of shorter jean shorts. While they may be totally fine for you to be wearing in a lot of schools or, like I said, sports practice, in general, not going to be appropriate clothing for the programs that we're on. A lot of the programs that we're doing are sort of community service based, or we might be in more conservative cultures, smaller villages, things like that. And they're just not sort of used to that as their style of dress. So it may mean having to go out to, Marshall's or, Macy's or wherever just to pick up a pair of shorts or capri pants that are just sort of appropriate for where you're traveling. I always tell people, sometimes it just doesn't click, because it seems fine back home. Everyone I know wears these shorts. We hear that question and concern all the time. sort of what I tell people is, you know, comparatively, you might have a really cute white dress. You can wear it to the beach. It's awesome. You wouldn't wear that same cute white dress to a wedding. Doesn't mean that the white dress is inappropriate, just means it's inappropriate for the specific environment that you're in. Same thing for the shorts. While it may be okay to like wear back home, school, no one minds it there, we're just in a different context. So you'll want to be wearing sort of shorts or bottoms that are appropriate for the culture. Also, while it's not on the slide, my favorite thing and recommendation that you can probably wear is some of those sort of like tie elephant pants. They're great because they're pants, so they cover the full leg. They're usually really breezy and airy. So they're cooling, they keep you out of the sun. They protect you from getting bit by bugs. Just in general, I think those are the best kind of pants. Usually in a lot of countries, you can sort of buy those in country as well. And then they're kind of a fun souvenir to have if you're buying them in country while you're there too. These are just some pictures of some appropriate dress. So you see sort of the girl on the far left, she's got you know, a full pair of pants. You really don't want to be wearing like super tight leggings either. That sort of just falls in the category of inappropriate pant as well. We see tons of people that have leggings. We are a little bit more in the United States, especially we see pretty tight pants. Full leg pants are fine. You just want something that's super like form fitting. The girl right to her right in the picture is someone who's wearing, you know, like an elephant pant. Again, great pant, light, breezy, sort of keeps you cool when you're out and about, but also perfectly sort of appropriate dress. And then the three people sort of in the middle right there are in some shorts and capris. That's exactly sort of like the length you want. So these are like just great example of students sort of like wearing appropriate dress. You may see one or two photos on the website of students wearing maybe a shorter short. If it's on the website, because we get those questions all the time, it might be just a picture that we took at the base house. So if you have one pair of like Nike running shorts, because that's just what you want to sleep in at night, that would be fine as sort of pajama, but don't expect to sort of be wearing that out and about in the community that we're in. Luggage, next question that we get all the time, what bag should I pack to bring with me? In general, sort of our best recommendation is going to be about a 50 to 70 liter duffel bag. So these are just some really good examples of sort of duffel bags that you can bring. Patagonia, Kelty, REI, these are just some like outdoor brands that are really commonly where you're going to see some of these just like high quality bags that are sort of perfect for these traveling purposes. If you bring sort of like a roller suitcase, you can see one on the far right of this picture that is both sort of a backpack that you can put on your back, but also has wheels. That's sort of like the best of both worlds. A lot of people just end up bringing like a roller bag. If you do end up doing that, that can be okay. Just keep in mind for a lot of our programs, you may have to carry it on your own volition for short distances. So the sort of reason that we want people to bring sort of these backpacks or these duffel bags is we want you to sort of be in the mentality of, yep, I may need to carry this on my back or hand carry it for 5 minutes, or I may need to carry it up a couple flights of stairs. Most of the times, if you're traveling in the United States, you're used to just sort of wheeling it everywhere, and you have these really wonderfully beautiful flat floors everywhere you go. It's super easy to roll, you know, the bag everywhere you are. We are going to a lot of rural villages, or we're traveling a lot on some of our programs. So you're constantly like in a van, out of van, taking it from, you know, carrying up one flight of stairs to your room, or you're just trying to wheel it sort of over gravelly roads or up a rural path if you're on a village-based program. So really just think about that in terms of packing. I definitely think it's way easier to sort of have these duffel bags and sort of backpacks. And if they're traveling right now as 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, chances are they'll probably want to study abroad in college or have some sort of like backpacking experience. And these are sort of the best bags. So I just think they're sort of good investments for people that are probably going to continue the travel bug for the next, 5, 10 years of their life. Shoes, we also get this question quite a bit. 2 to 3 pairs is probably the recommended or a good amount to bring. These are just some pictures of good things to keep in mind when you're packing. So you sort of see the top, the middle, and the right. These are some Chacos, some Tevas, sort of like a strappy sandal. I think those are the best kind of sandal to bring. A lot of people like to wear sandals just because we're in a lot of warmer climates a lot of time, but you want something that has like a back to it. So if you're going whitewater rafting, or if you're going, if you're walking for a mile or two during the day just between service sites, they sort of keep your feet cool while also just being a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more sturdy of a shoe. You can also bring a pair of flip-flops. Flip-flops are great if you're on a beach program or if you are wearing them into the shower or just around the base house. Those are really great to have. And then you'll see some hiking boots, sort of the top left and then the bottom middle picture. A big thing for hiking boots or shoes like that, if you are buying them specifically for the program, buy them now, wear them for a couple of days before you get on program. Especially with like sort of a sturdier shoe like that or more of a hiking boot or shoe, you'll want to wear them in or break them in a little bit before you go on a 5-mile hike, on off the map Peru or something like that. You just don't want them to give you blisters on the very first day that you're wearing them and wearing them for a long time. Best to like break them in and get them used to your feet a little bit before going on program. And then sort of the bottom right shoe is just like a very casual, like sneaker, chucks, that kind of thing. Also a really great shoe to have. I think those are really great on like service days. So if you're doing summer camp leadership and you're maybe moving around a little bit, want a really comfortable shoe, still want something closed-toed. Maybe it's the shoe that you wore for gym class, last year. They're a little bit dirty. Maybe you're planning on leaving them behind. I think a shoe that's maybe okay if you leave it behind, if it gets a little bit muddy or a little bit rugged, is sort of a good recommendation of a shoe to have as well. What not to bring? Don't bring too much stuff. I very rarely see students overpack on these programs. Underpack on these programs. Most of the time people are packing way too much on program. And then, they pull out 4 shirts at the end of the trip that they never wore, or they bring huge bottles of shampoo and hairspray and, everything in their bathroom with them. Don't bring too much stuff. If you, turns out you need an extra shirt, or you run out of toothpaste, or you run out of shampoo while you're on the program, the other thing I always like to remind people is we are traveling everywhere around the world. Everyone uses toothbrush, shampoo, toothpaste. You can always get a shirt somewhere you're traveling. So if you, for some miraculous reason, run out of that kind of stuff, easy, just talk to your program leader. We can always, get you some, or you can borrow it from a friend. Happens all the time. Don't bring inappropriate clothing. So again, if you want to bring 1 pair of Nike running shorts to wear to sleep at night, you don't need to bring 8 pairs of Nike running shorts. You're just not going to wear them. So don't bring excess amounts of inappropriate clothing that you're not going to use. Laptops, tablets, drones, you don't need them. So things like laptops and tablets, sometimes people think about bringing them because they're like, oh, it's not too bad. It's only a couple of pounds. Couple of pounds really starts to add up when you're carrying it on your back. You won't really need a laptop or a tablet all while you're traveling. A lot of times people will just use their phone if they end up having Wi-Fi in the program, just to send like a quick message home. Just unnecessary. You won't really need it on the program. We do sometimes get questions about drones. Hey, can I bring this with me? In general, no. So a lot of countries actually have restrictions about drone usage on program. And different municipalities and cities also will have restrictions on it. So general rule of thumb, just don't bring them because you can't use them. It can actually become confiscated, or it can just sort of just not be appropriate to use in those communities. Things like GoPro cameras, totally awesome. Bring that. If you're on a program with surfing, or if you're bungee jumping, bring a GoPro that with the chest strap, or, the handle where you can sort of hold it and strap to you. Awesome. Those kind of things are cool, but no to drones. And then of course, don't bring things like drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or vape pens. Those just things in general are restricted items and activities on Rustic Pathways programs, just in totality. So if you would have any of those things while on program, it's against Rustic Pathways rules and policies, so you'd have to go home. So just don't bring them. Even if you, smoke at home and it's okay, or you vape at home and you say, hey, this isn't for my program, but I just want it for when I get back to the United States, just don't do it. Leave it at home. Just assume that anytime that you're traveling, even if it's on your domestic flight, just don't bring it, so it's not an issue if it would fall out of your bag or something like that, and you try and convince me that it was just for your domestic flight home. Just don't bring it. Pre-departure package. So this either will have already hit your home or will be hitting your home soon. So usually we send these packages out anywhere between like 3 and 5 weeks prior to departure. So if you're leaving in a week, it's probably already at your home. If you're leaving towards the end of the month, it'll be getting there soon. But this is a look of what to expect in your pre-departure package. You'll have, what you'll see there on the left is the Rustic Pathways t-shirt. They're super soft and comfortable. You'll want to wear that on travel day. So when you are flying, so domestically, you'll want to do it so when you land at your port city where you're meeting your Rustic Pathways group, so whether that's JFK or Miami or Los Angeles, you want to be sure that you're wearing that shirt, just because it's much easier for our staff members to sort of recognize students in the airport. I also was just a flight leader to Morocco, so it also helps for things like once we board the airplane, it's easier for me to tell the flight attendant, hey, if you see anyone in one of these t-shirts and they ask a question or they're not feeling well, just feel free to come talk to me because I'm their flight leader or traveling with them. So just in general, plan on wearing that shirt both to country, and then when you're going back home, you'll be wearing that shirt. You'll also have a couple cool things, like you'll have some stickers, you'll have some luggage tags, you'll get sort of some like things to think about, some like little cards about like what to expect and what you'll see on the summer. You also get like a bracelet that'll have the Rustic Pathways emergency number on it. I always tell people, make sure that you're wearing that on travel day. So when you're on that domestic flight, if something would happen, if you would get sick while you were traveling or you missed your domestic flight, then you just always know that that number is right there. So you don't have to scramble about finding that number in your email. It's just always attached to the student. So they always know sort of what number to call if they need something on travel day. If it's about like a week before your program and you still haven't received your pre-departure package, definitely feel free to give our office a call or to send an email to your personal travel advisor. We'll get in touch with our shipping department. We'll track your package. We'll see sort of where it is, where it was delivered. A lot of times it actually was delivered. Maybe the student got it and they didn't tell their parent that they got there, or vice versa. The parent received it, didn't tell the student. 9 times out of 10, it has already gone to your home and you just might not have known it. But just let us know and we can talk to the shipping department to make sure that it was delivered. What to expect on travel days. So for all of our countries, if you're traveling from the United States, you're going to be meeting in one of our port cities. Like I said, it's going to vary from country to country. So if you're going to Costa Rica, it might be either Newark, New Jersey, or Houston, Texas. If you're going to Fiji, it's going to be Los Angeles. If you're going to Peru, it's going to be Miami. So every country is going to be meeting in a different airport. I always like to walk through sort of what that travel day looks like. First thing, again, before you get on your domestic flight, so let's say you're coming from Chicago and you're meeting us in Los Angeles to go on our group flight to Fiji. First things first, make sure you've got your Rustic Pathways sort of emergency phone number bracelet on your wrist, and you're wearing your Rustic Pathways t-shirt, just so you're easily identifiable there. And also sort of a week before your travel date, you're gonna get sort of a pre-departure email or a travel day email, which will have some great information. So I think sort of printing out that information packet and sort of sending with the student is super, super helpful. So with that, it'll have like information about like what the Los Angeles airport looks like and where our staff members will be, and phone numbers for the airport coordinators who are on the ground in Los Angeles. I think just having sort of that printed out and sent with the students is really helpful. So have that printout with you, have some snacks, your water bottle, and some spending money. Make sure that you're just comfortable at the airport. Usually is a little bit of a long day. So make sure you just have, 10 or 20 bucks so you can buy lunch, or so you can get some chips or a soda or a water or things like that while you're traveling. While you're traveling there, like I said, you'll have the number of your airport coordinator, what it looks like on the ground. So again, we'll use the LAX airport as an example. We have a couple different sets of staff member who are at the airport. So we've got an airport coordinator or 2. So those are people who are going to be at the airport all day on travel day. So they will send students texts. They're the numbers if a student lands in Los Angeles and says, ooh, I don't remember what terminal I'm supposed to go to. Which terminal are we meeting at, or where am I supposed to meet staff? They will take texts, they'll take calls on that day so they can help students sort of like navigate to the meeting point in that airport to meet up with the rest of the group. And then we've got flight leaders or flight chaperones. So that's what I was doing just this last week in Morocco. I was one of the flight leaders sort of escorting students to and from Morocco, but we are the physical people that will be flying with the students on the airplane. So it depends a little bit when your domestic flight comes in. You might find me, the flight leader, either at the gate sort of waiting with you, or we might walk through security as a big group. Sort of depends, again, on the timing of your individual domestic flight. But you're going to have staff members that are both at the airport all day, and then the staff members that are flying with the students themselves. When they're flying with the students, we'll give them sets of instructions about how we stick together as a group. You know, if they have to use the restroom, or if they want to go get a bite to eat or grab some lunch or some dinner, totally fine. We'll sort of show them to the gate where our group is meeting, make sure they have my cell phone number, all those kind of things. So they can go off, you know, for 20 minutes with a buddy to get some food and then come back, things like that. We'll then physically fly with the students to that country. We'll help them through sort of immigration and customs. So to help them fill out any forms. We would be there in case there was a flight delay, or if a bag got lost, we'll help them fill out that paperwork of, you know, how to get the bag as soon as the airport or the airline sends it on the next flight, things like that. It doesn't happen that often, but we just want to make people know and feel comfortable that there are adults and chaperones that are sort of there to assist in any of those kind of situations. That's then when we land in country and get through immigration and customs, that's when we meet up with our in-country staff and any other students who may be connecting programs back to back. Other things to sort of keep in mind for travel day, bring something to sort of entertain yourself. So deck of cards, a book, journal, those are sort of great things. We do know that people get to the airport early. So for all of our programs, we're always recommending people get there, you know, 4 hours before that international departure. We always say 4 hours because that's when we see a significant decrease in people missing sort of that international flight because of a delayed domestic flight. So it's awesome because there's just a high likelihood because you're there early, you're not going to miss that international flight. But we do know that you're going to be sitting at the airport for a while. Definitely helps to sort of bring an entertainment item. But the other thing to keep in mind is you're going to be meeting fellow travelers and friends while you're at the airport. So don't get too stressed out by the idea of like, oh no, I'm going to be there 4 hours in advance. You're going to be there 4 hours in advance, but you're also going to be there 4 hours in advance with 10, 20 other students who are also going on that journey to Fiji or Morocco or Peru or Costa Rica with you. It's actually usually a really fun time to sort of get to know other students. Again, you'll have a staff member like me, so sort of encouraging students to meet one another, encouraging conversation, people to start making friends right away at that airport. Yeah, it's usually just a really fun day. I always know that people on that first day are always a little bit nervous. About 75% of our students travel by themselves or without a friend. So it's actually more common for people to be traveling on their own. So if that's you or your student or child, don't worry too much. It's more common for people to not know anyone on that airport day. So you'll have, again, staff members there to sort of help and encourage people to make friends right away, even on that travel day itself. And the last thing is the buddy system. So once we're sort of together as a group, like I said, if people want to use the restroom or get a bite to eat or a snack, totally fine. We'll just make sure that people are always in the airport as a buddy. And we always meet well before sort of the boarding time. So we always make sure that students get on the flight and are not confused about their gate, or, you know, if they, you know, went to Applebee's in the airport and can't find their way or can't remember the gate, there's always plenty of time to sort of make sure that they get back to the group. Cell phone policy. So I mentioned this before. In general, cell phone policy, a lot of students tend to travel with cell phone these days. A lot of people tend to actually get international plans. As years progress, we see that as a more common thing. I definitely encourage you to have a conversation with your student prior to the departure about what the expectation is on your end as a parent and their expectation as a student about how much they're going to communicate back home. Like I said, I've been a trip leader myself for about 10 years at Rustic Pathways. So I've seen a big change, you know, from when I first started running programs 10 years ago to today. In general, though, we don't want students using their cell phones during group activity times. If they're taking pictures, totally fine. But I don't want students on Instagram or Snapchatting or just like texting back and forth with friends all day throughout the program. So really, I tell people to assume from about 8:30 in the morning till 8 or 9 p.m. at night, assume that it's not time to be using your cell phone for anything other than taking pictures. So, before breakfast or after dinner, if you want to send a quick text home, awesome, happy to send it, happy for you to send a quick message back. But don't sort of, expect the student to be able to have 24 access to their cell phone, as they may have, back home or back in the States, because we really want to encourage them to have sort of this moment and this opportunity to sort of get to know the country, get to know the culture, get to know their group mates, and sort of just disconnect a little bit, which is just different from what most students are used to these days. Again, I always encourage you to have that conversation with your student prior to departure, because some parents say, great, I'll add an international data plan, and I know that they're going to text me every morning for breakfast and every night before they go to bed. And then they get worried when their student hasn't texted them for a day, 2 days, whatever. We at Rustic Pathways will send out communication throughout the program. So you're going to get sort of a safe arrival email once they land, they get through security, and sort of are in the transportation to their hotel on the first day. We're also going to be giving sort of updates throughout the program from our global communications coordinators. So those will have updates about like what's happening on the program. There'll be some photos that get sent throughout the trip. So you're going to be hearing from the student. I definitely know that for parents, this is a challenge. You may be used to sort of having constant communication from your student. And this might be really the first time that it might be a day, 2 days, 4 days that you don't hear from them. So either mentally prepare or have that conversation with the student, and just think about it, as a parent-student duo, what the point of this trip is, and just sort of give them sort of that opportunity on the ground, just so you both are sort of on the same page with what to expect in country. Communication with home, again, as I just mentioned, you're going to get communication from Rustic Pathways. So you'll get a safe arrival email, you'll get updates throughout the trip. And then, of course, if there's any sort of emergency that happens on the program, you'll be hearing from us sort of in like as soon as the situation sort of unfolds. So if a student was, throwing up, definitely we're going to be communicating with parents that the student is, not feeling well or is ill, and how we're taking care of it. What I always tell parents too is if it's 3 a.m., maybe they're throwing up, we're taking care of it, but we might not email you or call you or communicate with you until 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. because I don't want to wake you up at 3 a.m. for a non-emergency situation. So we'll communicate with you appropriately depending on the situation. If it was a situation where we're taking them to a clinic or hospital, that will be sort of communicating with you as it's happening. But you'll definitely get communication from us if any of those situations sort of arise while on program. And then as well, there'll be a 24-hour emergency number that you'll have. Again, it should be in your portal and some that sort of day of travel email. It's in a couple different spots what the 24-hour emergency number is. I always think it's good for parents either to put that in your cell phone or put it on a Post-it note just where it's easily accessible, just in case there's an emergency on your end as well. So if there would be a family situation or a health incident would come up, back home in Chicago that you needed to get in touch with the student, that's the number to call, so we can sort of create the chain of communication to get in touch with our staff members, both in the United States, and then communicate with them in Fiji or Tanzania or wherever your student is traveling. And then things to get ready for. So again, I always think it's just good to have a conversation with the students, or if you're a student yourself, just to think about some of these things. So be prepared to make new friends. A lot of times I think people are surprised by how quickly you can sort of make really great friends while on program. So again, like I said, I just came off of 2 weeks of running programs in Morocco. It was a group of 12. They all became really close really quickly. It's very different than sort of going to school with a lot of people your same age. So yes, maybe you've seen some of your friends from school and you had English class with them last year and you had chemistry with them this year, but it's very different sort of, sitting across the room from someone as you learn about Shakespeare or physics, versus like having an in-depth conversation about like, what cultural baggage are you coming into on this program? Or, who are you as a person, and what is community service, and what are things that are surprising you or challenging you? Like, it's usually much more deeper, in-depth questions. So people tend to develop really good and close bonds with one another on a relatively short time frame. So I think it's just something to be really excited for, and people get a little bit nervous for it. As I said, most people tend to travel on their own, but yeah, just something just to be prepped for and really just jazzed about on this experience and opportunity. Be excited to try new foods and learn a new language. Again, I think it's something that people, back home, maybe all you really like is chicken nuggets or pizza. And so you go to Morocco and you're like, what is a tagine? Or what are these spices? Or, ooh, I don't really like broccoli. So like, am I going to try it if it's in this dish? I think it's really great opportunity to sort of just try something maybe a little bit different. We're never going to have like really, weird food. If you go to Cambodia, sure, maybe we'll have an opportunity for you to try like scorpions, but that's not going to be your meal for the night. I just think it's a good opportunity to sort of try something and maybe go outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Same thing with the language. Maybe you don't speak Arabic. Maybe you don't speak Spanish. Maybe you don't speak French or Lao. This is a great opportunity to learn 10, 20 words and connect with some of the local people, kids, communities that you're working with. No, you are not going to become fluent in Arabic or Swahili in the 2 weeks that you're there. But I think it's a really great time and opportunity to learn, hey, what is your name in a different language? I think it really helps add to the experience when you sort of are a little bit vulnerable and are challenging yourself and pushing yourself to learn something new and try something new. That being said, also go with the flow. A lot of times, again, I've traveled, I think, in 15 different countries with Rustic Pathways. We could be in Fiji, and the guy who was delivering the sand so we could start the construction project might be an hour late. So we are just going to play a game while we wait for him to deliver it. It's just Fiji time and things run a little bit slower. Or it could be that you are just surprised with how hot it is on one day. So we decide to switch around activities so we get some time at the pool on Tuesday. And then we're going ziplining tomorrow, which is a better day when it's a little bit cooler. Just be prepared for some of those kind of things. It's just travel, so sometimes things sort of switch last minute, especially when we're working with smaller communities or cultures. Just know that we're maybe sort of making those switches because we want to have a really great opportunity for you. Or just could be that's what the community and culture is sort of used to. Like I said, Fiji is really known for island time, so things work maybe a little bit slower than what you're used to back home. Just, I think, sort of being mentally prepared for those kind of things is really helpful. And just asking staff members, if you're confused by like why, we might switch an activity from Tuesday to Wednesday, or, why are we waiting a half an hour? And just sort of saying, oh, okay, yeah, the delivery guy isn't there. And then just be prepared to challenge yourself and push yourself. Ultimately, you are taking a trip because it is not what it's like back home. Inherently, it is going to be different than what you're used to. So I often, as a trip leader, I'm talking to students about that, and they're like, oh, it's just so hot, or this food's a little bit different, or, I'm not used to wearing shorts that go to my knees. Cool, awesome. The reason you're doing this is because it's not back home. So I think just being prepared for some of those challenges and understanding that it is different. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. I think are just some really good sort of mental things to sort of check off and just be prepared for prior to participating on a program. Donations policy. So we get this question a lot too in sort of prepping for the program itself. A lot of people always want to know, like, what can I donate? What can I give? You'll get like a country email. Usually it comes a couple weeks prior to departure, which is from the country director, and it'll have like country specific information. With that information is usually a very specific list. If that country is soliciting donations, what those donations are, we really always ask people, try and stick to that list. So in the world of sustainable development, Rustic Pathways has been doing this for almost 40 years now. And we work with a lot of different organizations that talk about sort of like what are really great donations and what are things that are not so great for communities. A lot of times people have really great intentions. So maybe you are a dentist, and so you've got 500 toothbrushes that you want to donate. Or maybe you have 300 books that you just picked up at a garage sale that you think will be perfect. really, in terms of sustainable development, the reason we ask people to stick to those lists is because there's a lot of waste sort of in the international development world. So while you may want to donate 500 toothbrushes, if there's not a really great way to sort of distribute those appropriately, there's lots of examples, not just in Rustic Pathways, but just in general in the world of sort of like abroad programs, where now you've got 400 of those toothbrushes, which are just trash and sitting in a landfill in a country that doesn't have really a proper way to dispose of them. So they're just sort of on the side of the road. Or it could be that because you donated 500 toothbrushes, now the place that specifically is selling, like the mom and pop store that gets their livelihood on selling like health products, now all of a sudden just doesn't have that same income. And so it actually is a detriment to that community. So yeah, there's some really interesting things. I'm always happy to go through that because I think it's so interesting to discuss. But I always tell people really just try and stick to that list. We can't take donations of material goods after programs. So again, this just comes into like logistics. 200 books that you want to donate. If that was on the donation list, awesome. We'd love for you to bring it there. We can't receive those sort of after the fact of the program. The shipping costs alone for those things, sometimes it's just hundreds of dollars. It can get stuck in immigration, customs, costs another several hundreds or thousands of dollars to get them out of customs. So we just can't take material goods after the program. But there are some really cool things like the Rustic Pathways Foundation. So that is the nonprofit branch of Rustic Pathways that sort of has sort of projects that we have throughout the year. So there's usually 10 to 15 foundation projects that we're working on in any given year. We're soliciting funds to, say, build a school in Cambodia, or work on water treatment and access for communities in the Dominican Republic, or work on an education project for women and girls in Peru. So there are definitely opportunities if you're like, oh my gosh, we love Rustic Pathways, or my student had a really great opportunity there. What can I do to sort of give back after the fact? Financial resources of the foundation for projects that we've helped identify with the community and have sort of like long-term global impact plans associated with them is really how you can sort of be involved after the fact. And then also with the donations policies, just gifts for homestay families. Not every program is a homestay family component. In fact, most don't. There's probably about half a dozen to a dozen programs that have a homestay component to it. If you do have a program with a homestay, awesome. Little gifts for them is really what you should bring. So chocolates, or maybe, like a fun food products or some spices or something homemade from like your city or your family, usually are sort of like the best thing to bring with them. Usually just something fun that they can sort of share in while you're there. And then last but not least, I always like to encourage people of, what to expect once you get back home. So with Rustic, we always are really sort of like thinking about, how are we prepping you for your program? What are we doing on the program itself? But then also, how do you stay involved and what happens after the program in terms of Rustic Pathways in the student or our families? So we get a post-trip survey, usually comes out about a week after the fact. Always want people to be honest and open with all their feedback, both positive and then if there's any room for improvement. Ultimately, we've been running programs, like I said, for just shy of 40 years. A lot of these programs now we've been running for 10, 20 years. The reason that they're so awesome is because if if we tried going on a hike and you just didn't like it, and we added the hike new this year, awesome. We want to know about it. We want to know that you just didn't know how long it would be, or you thought it was too far. Great. Maybe we just make that hike a little bit shorter this year. If you loved the food, or if you loved your program leaders, or you really loved one of the activities, always just encourage you again to put that there, just so we can either maybe increase the amount of time we spend in that activity, make sure that we never switch that restaurant. It helps us identify which program leaders really relate to students when we're rehiring for the next year. We know which program leaders really connect with students. So always, if you can fill out that survey, we really appreciate it. There's the hashtag, so Rustic competition. So there are some opportunities for students to participate in contests. We give some gear every week. If you post on Instagram and use the hashtag so Rustic, we pick a weekly winner to win some cool like Patagonia gear, I think it is, or just some travel gear. And then at the end of summer, we'll give one free trip up to, I think, $4,000 to the winning photo that we select. Again, think about it as a later gram. So take your pictures. We definitely want you to post it on Instagram. We love when students sort of share their experience, but share that after sort of you get back home from your program. And then the Rustic Squad and Impact Ambassadors are really cool ways for students to be involved after the fact. So you can join the Rustic Squad, which is part of our like alumni community of students. So usually there's some really cool opportunities to stay involved. So we'll send you some like stickers or some swag sometime. If you end up, talking about your experience, if we're visiting your school in the fall or the spring and you join us at the table. Or I was hosting some like in-person live events last spring, just where people could sort of meet people sort of in their community, and we'll invite members of the Rustic Squad to come in and talk about their experience. Or we might sort of send, if we have a new website launch and we just want to say like, hey, do you want to get involved and see if you think this is cool? Is it easy to access, to view the website? Do you think it's easy to navigate? There's just some cool ways for people to stay involved in Rustic and our projects and getting in touch with other students after the fact. And then Impact Ambassadors is staying involved through our foundation after the program. So I think last year we had about 150 students sign up to be Impact Ambassadors, and they ended up raising over $100,000 for our projects globally. Really, really awesome opportunity. There's some really cool resources that we'll give students about, how do you stay involved in these projects? How do you activate your community? How do you fundraise, or how do you raise awareness of some of these issues? We've had students in the past that have organized citywide 5Ks to run marathons, or to run 5Ks. We've had some students run marathons. We've had some students just give presentations like in their service club about how to become more like globally minded, or how to identify, more impactful service opportunities in your local community. So always encourage people to look into the Impact Ambassador program, just because I think it's a cool way to stay involved after the fact. Now we'll take some questions. So those are a lot of the basics to go through. Let me just look here and see what questions that Casey and Colleen have that y'all came through. While I'm looking this up, if you have some questions that we didn't go over, again, feel free to use that Q&A section at the bottom. If it's a very specific question related to your program that we don't have time for, we'll make sure that we follow up with you via email tomorrow as well. Let's see. Cool, awesome. It looks like actually a lot of the questions that were asked sort of in the background were sort of like trip specific questions. So no general questions here, which is awesome. You're ready to go. This is it. This is just our general contact information. Like I said, I always encourage people. You may have questions, a week before program, the day before program. Always feel free, give us a call or send us an email. We're always really happy to help answer anything for you. This is just the main line and the main email address. So we've got heaps of staff sort of answering those questions. I do encourage people, try and think of some of your questions before the day of your program if you can, just because typically like Mondays and Tuesdays in our office are really busy because Tuesdays are usually when everyone's traveling. So it can be a little bit slower just to sort of get an email response if it's, 12 hours before your program, because that's just when we see a mad rush of questions. So if you can sort of think ahead a week or 2 weeks in advance, usually just makes y'all a little bit less stressed, our office staff a little less stressed for just getting to all the questions. But like I said, we're always happy to answer anything you've got. No question is silly. Like I said, we've probably heard it 100 times. So any of things you've got, call our main line, email your PTA or your personal travel advisor, or just email our main sort of email address here, and we are always happy to help you out. We are so excited for you all to join us this year and this summer. Anything else we can help out with, just let us know. Otherwise, we are really excited to see y'all travel with us this summer. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.